Hi, my name's James Fowl and this is the Huxley Morton podcast. I hope you're enjoying series 3 so far, and before we jump back in for another episode, I'd love it if you could like, subscribe and hit that notifications button, as it really helps us to increase our reach. We run the show to both help and inspire those working in clinical research, so if there's anyone else that you think would benefit from tuning in, please spread the word. For now though, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Huxley Morton podcast with me, James Fowl, founder and director at Huxley Morton, and my fabulous co-host, Mr. Adam Walker, independent biometrics expert. This week, we are joined by Alex Evans, CEO at RAREiTi. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm excited to participate.
You are very much welcome. Good to have you. Well, look, Alex, I gave you a very brief intro there, but look, just give us a quick overview as to yourself, Alex Evans, and the business.
Yeah, sure. So I joined RAREiTi about a year ago now. In fact, I've just had my 1 year anniversary as Chief Executive Officer. And RAREiTi is really about bringing together clinicians, patients, and pharma clients and biotech companies to help patients get access to therapy in the early stages, even before a product is approved. We work predominantly in the rare disease arena, and as you're probably aware, this patient group don't have time to wait for approvals, for drugs to get approved and to get on a license in countries. So they're running out of time in effect, and being able to access therapies early is really important to them, and we help navigate all of the regulatory process to enable that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And look, you mentioned rare diseases there, which kind of goes in sync with the company name. I know that Adam and I are often interested in names and their origins. Where did the name come from for the business?
So that's a really interesting question, actually. Obviously, we focus mainly in rare disease and rare cancers. Our co-founders have got quite a lot of experience in the rare disease arena. Wendy White, our co-founder, has worked in rare disease for all of her career. And our other co-founder, Natalie Douglas, has worked in a more varied role across pharma, but predominantly in rare disease. We've got a lot of experience and expertise in that area. The ITI element of it is that we're really trying to move things forward in managed access by providing a really neat digital platform that provides data capture, it provides analytics. It also provides a method in which patients can monitor how they're progressing on their treatment. It also provides the ability for consultants, the doctors, the prescribers, to check in on the patients in a remote way, so that they can see how the patients are getting on the treatment as well.
Fantastic. So, look, I guess in that sort of platform, I certainly know that is where Adam is a bit of an expert, and that's why he's here on the show, is to add some I guess real knowledge on that side of things. So I know that you guys have worked previously together. Adam, look, could you dive in with, I guess, any additional questions about the platform, about, some of the great things that you guys are doing at RAREiTi, and I guess what your involvement was previously with the company?
Yes, of course. So Alex and I worked together, I guess, about a year ago now. And I'd previously worked with Natalie Douglas in her previous company, IDIS, where she was CEO. And our engagement was really around the development of a data platform that would bring together patients and healthcare professionals in a different way in a rare disease setting that hadn't really been done before. And this was really the paradigm shift, and where they identified between Natalie, Wendy and Alex was where the gap in the market was. I think it's fair to say, Alex, you've got an extensive career in and across pharma and a background in nursing as well, and that really set you aside with regards to the clinical practice around that. But what was really interesting from my point of view, and certainly in our engagement that we worked together on, was building a platform and developing a solution based around a problem, effectively, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really helped me coming from a clinical background, actually, in terms of developing the platform. You know, and I've used this skill set many years in the pharma industry. You know, I trained originally as a nurse, and then I entered into the pharma industry many, many years ago. And what it gives me is the opportunity to think like a clinician in terms of what a clinician is looking for, but also think like you know, a pharma commercial person or a regulatory person in terms of what those individuals are looking for. And of course, in nursing, you're probably one of the closest clinicians to patients. You're there as a patient advocate every single day in what you're doing. And so it really has been, we were able to triangulate all of those three elements into building the platform so that everybody benefits. And patients really would get and do get great benefit from using the application that we've built. One, because they've got sort of, a resource in their pocket on their smartphone that they can access information, they can access support and advice, they can access training materials, all on their smartphone about their medication, about their access program, about anything about their condition. But two, it gives them the ability to track how they're getting on. And certainly for patients with rare disease, you might get patients that are a bit older and they're managing the application themselves, or it's a carer or a mum or a dad, and they can see the correlation between them taking their therapy, adhering to the therapy, and then the improvement in their symptoms and their condition, and they can see that firsthand. And then what that means when they go to see their doctor is that they can sit in the doctor's office with their application, and the doctor sees exactly the same picture on their screen. So rather than it be a conversation about, I've been doing okay, but I can't remember when I felt a little bit unsteady, they can see, the doctor can see, I can see you did really well, but then you stopped taking your medication that weekend. Can you remember what happened? And you can see as a result of stopping taking your medication, your symptoms flared up again. So it's a really good way of enabling an adult to adult, equal to equal conversation about the patient's progress on their treatment.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And that's all just from someone's pocket on their smartphone. I mean, I'm historically have been terrible with IT, probably up until COVID struck and we had to go a lot more remote and start utilizing everything. So how does, but I guess what I like about that is I'm a big advocate of what gets tracked gets improved. And I think that's the message that you guys are going with there. So how, so they can just log in, they log how they're feeling, they log when they're taking their medication, and then there's graphs, which everyone loves a graph of, tracking progress. And all of that is just instantaneous that they can access and then review with their doctor, with their...
Absolutely. So it's all recorded in real time, and they can see when they've taken the medication, they can see if they've had any adverse events or side effects to it, but then they can see what they're scoring as a symptom. And the application is customized to the patient's therapy. So the questions that they answer on the app are very, very specific to their condition and to their therapy area. So it's not a generic, are you feeling better today, or have your symptoms improved? It's really specific. So one example that we worked in is a condition called Prada Willie syndrome, which is a rare condition and it affects children. And they it's a dreadful, dreadful condition whereby children have no way of knowing whether they're full or not. This is one of the manifestations around whether they're full. So they constantly feel hunger, and that drives quite a few behaviors in children, like they go searching for food, they get upset if they're denied food, or they wake up in the middle of the night hungry. And so you can monitor on the app whether they've got upset today because they've been told they can't have additional snacks, or they've woken up at night and then therefore they've been tired the next day and not able to attend school. And so, you know, you can monitor how their symptoms are improving whilst they're on treatment.
Wow, I just can't. I mean, for me, that's a complete eye opener. I don't work in research, and I just had no idea that platforms like this even existed.
Dare I say, as a fairly new parent as well, you don't anticipate what's around the corner potentially for you as a parent. And what Alex is describing really is that patient caregiver interaction that turns anecdotes into fact, that you can then drive those conversations in the doctor's office and really look for underlying prescribed indicators that can really drive further decisions around clinical outcomes. And that's really ultimately what this is about, isn't it, Alex?
Absolutely. We've got a fantastic example of a mum telling us that, you know, she has a daughter. Her daughter doesn't like to take a medication because she doesn't like the medication. But the main symptom that this child has, or on this group of children have, is itchy skin. And so, you know, you can see on the app that, you know, you monitor how the itches and the skin irritation and all of that, and the mum can say to the child, look, this is when you're taking your medication and your itch is down, but these are the days when you've missed it, and look, your itch has got worse. So it really does work, and you really do need to take it. So it's quite a good tool for helping that interaction, not only with parents and children, but for individuals themselves managing their own condition, because sometimes, you know, I take medication for high blood pressure, and sometimes I just forget, or sometimes I just don't want to take it. And then, you know, as a nurse, I'm tracking my blood pressure, and I can see if I've not taken it, I can see my blood pressure increasing. And this is what the app does for patients. They can see their symptoms increase when they don't take their medication. And that's a really important factor in adherence to therapy.
So insightful. And I think that, Adam, you nailed it there. I was thinking just, you know, with my son who doesn't have rare diseases, but sometimes you're racking your brain with what is going on with them, whether they're hungry, whether they're hot, whether they're cold. It can be a whole multitude of things. Add a rare disease to that, and you just don't know. So just having a little bit more clarity just must be so helpful for these people. So that's, I guess, the users, the patients. Who's your client base? How are you guys going out and attracting, winning business? Where's the focus on that side of things?
Yeah, so our customers are pharma clients or biotech, and what we try to do is offer an enhancement to their data strategy. So it's not there to replace, you know, the phase 2, 3, 4 clinical trial picture, because they're very, very important. But it really does enhance the data collection to the point where, you can get really, really strong insights into how patients are performing in the real world. So it, it adds a new dimension to real world evidence, if you like, and real world data. The other element in which we've used the data that's generated from this is when clients or pharma clients or customers are going through an approval process for a line extension, or they're looking for additional data to support a reimbursement application, and the regulator or the health technology agency are looking for softer data sets. So they're looking to see the impact of this. So you can build things in that have a health economic element to it. So you could put in, say, for example, for children or for adults, have you attended school today? And you can record the number of days that, children attend school or an adult attends work. So you can really then put some health economic elements into it as well. We're not saying that we're going to replace all of those really key academic metrics, because they're really important. We really do provide a good insight, a good snapshot, and we advocate using validated tools in the build of the questions so that we can utilize the data in a formal way as well as an informal way.
Lovely.
You talk about the data there. Sorry, Alex. You talk about the data there now. outside of clinical trial setting, that's a key point, isn't it? Because what you've described is real world data, real world evidence. It's that which really drives patterns of uptake, isn't it? And how do you find that is driving conversations with regulators, with pharma companies outside of, when you're going to them with these proposals and with these suggestions now?
I think, we're in a really unique position, Adam, because there's a lot of providers talking about real world evidence generation and real world data. And there's a number of different ways in which this is being generated, actually. And sometimes the approach to the generation of real world evidence is quite costly to a pharma company. It's almost like paying for another clinical trial. Yeah. It's almost like paying for a big health economic piece of work. And the way in which this is being received is something that has twofold. The regulators are really interested in it because it's real-time, real-life data reported by the patients or their parents themselves. So it's not clinician reported, it's self-reported data, which is really valuable and really meaningful. And equally, it delivers a really true picture. It's not interpreted by anyone else. It just delivers the facts, as you say, Adam. Yes. So regulators looking at it are seeing a real insight into what's happening out in communities.
And dare I ask, I mean, just following on from the obvious question, it seems that presumably must have that needle must have moved somewhat in this COVID time that we're living in right now.
Absolutely.
Because this data is now pivotal to prescribing patterns, to people's lifestyle choices, to all the things that we're all experiencing in our own homes and in our own families.
Well, as you've just alluded to it, healthcare and healthcare management has seen a huge paradigm shift over the last 12 to 18 months with the pandemic, and having the remote monitoring, the remote access, the remote data capture, has grown enormously, not just in its usage, but in its validation. People can see that it's a really valid way of managing patients, and it's here to stay post-pandemic, I think.
I absolutely agree with you, by the way. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. Most certainly. Look, I guess, Alex, I'm sitting here. I'm massively impressed, by the way, in what you guys have put together. You say that your background is healthcare and pharma, going back the years. How did that come about in the first place? What drove you into healthcare and pharma, and why?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was a long time ago. It wasn't like 10 years ago. And I've had a fantastic career. I really have had the most fantastic career. And I'm really privileged to be part of RAREiTi right now, because I think it's the right time and offering the right service. But it came about a long, long time ago when I was watching a documentary about people in a very specialized unit with a spinal injury condition. And a unit had been set up that was changing the lives of people who either by injury or illness found themselves paralyzed, either from the waist down or from the neck down. Wow. And I was watching this as a 14-year-old thinking, I want to work there. That looks
really that young.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I did a little bit of research in terms of how I got there. And one of the things I recognized is that I wasn't going to get there and do a job that I really wanted to do unless I qualified as a nurse. So I qualified as a nurse, in South Wales. It was a fantastic training. It was, I was really, I really enjoyed it. And then I got myself to this specialised centre in Buckinghamshire called the National Spinal Injury Centre Hospital. And I qualified as in the specialty of spinal injuries whilst I was there. So did additional training. And I worked at quite a senior level at quite a young age. So by the time I was 26, I was a ward sister, which is quite young. And then I thought, God, I've achieved what I set out to achieve. And then I started looking around to you know, what's next.
How did you feel at that point? I guess at 26, look, a lot of us, you know, I was still, I mean, I was working, I was doing quite well, but I wouldn't say that I was overly passionate about what I was doing. It was more a case of a means to an end, and I was working because I wanted new car, new house, or whatever it was at the time. How did you feel at that time then to have almost achieved what you were looking to achieve, you know, from at the age of 14? That must have felt almost quite surreal.
Yeah, reflectively, I think, you know, I think it was a big achievement, you know, if I think back on it. At the time, I just thought, what's next? You know, that's all I thought was, well, what's next for me now? And just by fluke, I, you know, was in the hospital buying a coffee, and I met somebody who was, you know, it was pivotal in the change in my life. I met somebody that I trained with in South Wales, and she worked for Astra Pharmaceuticals as a sales manager. And she said, "Oh, I've got a job going. Do you want to talk to me about it?" So it wasn't your traditional, you know, medical representative job. It was building an opportunity, building a project, in the sort of looking at patient care, and building what is now known as a patient support program, but at the time it was called a nurse advisor program.
Right.
And there were a number of them about. There was one or two within Astra Pharmaceuticals in the respiratory arena, but I was working predominantly and really focused in gastroenterology. And I was part of, you know, the big story of the blockbuster LOSEC. I was part of the LOSEC launch team, and we set about setting up this nurse advisor program in primary care. And obviously I was living in, you know, I was living in England, I was living in Buckinghamshire, and we piloted it in that area, and I designed, created the whole program. It worked, and we went from me as a nurse advisor in the Oxford region to having 4, to ultimately having 250 nurses and about 6 different nurse advisor programs. It went, you know, it went from a very small program to huge. And, you know, I ended my career at AstraZeneca, having been head of clinical nursing for 7 years there, and managing nurse advisor programs in gastroenterology, respiratory, cardiovascular, cancer, the whole range of different therapeutic areas, and they all looked and felt very different. And that was a fantastic opportunity for me, not only because it was so novel and new and really successful, but because I worked for a guy who taught me everything I knew about clinical trials, because I was part of the clinical trials team, and I didn't build clinical trials, but we followed the same methodology, the same rigor, the same rigor and attention to detail in developing the program. And I truly believe that's why it was such a success. It wasn't a simple process that was, you know, just built to drive commercial sales. It was there to truly enhance patients' lives and create data. And that's really, you know, where my passion for all of this stemmed from.
Wow. So that is really a case of from one success to the next.
Yeah.
Like, how did you do it? You know, not in terms of the day-to-day, you know, putting it together, but, you know, mentally, how did you feel at that time?
So I think that's a really, interesting. And it's exactly the same with RAREiTi as well. I think you do it because you have a good team, you know, you have a vision, but you have a really good team around you that understand the vision. They understood, and in RAREiTi the same, understand what we need to do to get there, what it takes, and bringing in very, very specific expertise is really important. Not trying to do it all yourself. I think for me, you know, bringing in Adam and his expertise was really pivotal in us getting the technology across.
He's right, isn't he?
Him a number of times. So
I didn't put her up to that, by the way. Thank you for that, Alex. But to be honest, I've learned an incredible amount from working with you as well and the team, because I think it's fair to say that not just yourself, but the entire leadership of RAREiTi have a laser focus as to what they want to achieve. And I think to your point, James, you know, when you're talking about how people adapt and change in different careers and different opportunities, you've got to retain the inner drive, but also the laser focus for the long game, isn't it? And that's really what I've seen in the time that I've worked with you, Alex, is that the long-term focus. In other words, where do we need to get to and how do we get there? And I think as CEO, that's, you know, those are the questions that you ask about bringing in core people that can absolutely traverse that journey through to where you need to get to. And that's what I've seen, I think, directly working alongside
and
you.
I think on top of that, with RAREiTi, I've got two fantastic co-founders with Natalie Douglas and Wendy White. And Natalie has, you know, she's got so much really relevant experience and skill in this arena. I think I've learned so much from her in the last year. And then Wendy complements me because she is very patient focused. She's very patient advocate focused. And you know, she's brought a uniqueness to the table. Actually, from a co-founder perspective, we've been really fortunate. And then the team, you know, the team has grown. So Adam was part of the team, and we've got really specific skills in regulatory affairs. We've got a chief medical officer. We've got a very, very good team at RAREiTi.
It sounds like you've got a good dynamic there. And look, from my perspective, you know, just listening in with my recruiter hat on for a moment, I guess one thing that I always look for is almost, I guess it's a track record of success. You know, if people can be put into a new environment and come out winning, that's, you know, that means that they are placeable wherever they go. For yourself, you've proved it a couple of times already. But moving on to RAREiTi, you joined just over a year ago, wasn't it? Where we are kind of height of COVID. And again, I'm now just thinking, what is in store for you guys at COVID? So look, tell us about the move to RAREiTi and how things are going for you now, because it must have been tough to come on as a new CEO to a business during that time. It was crazy.
Yeah, you know, it was crazy. And certainly when I was appointed to the role, it was pre-COVID. You know, I didn't see the pandemic around. None of us saw the pandemic around the corner.
Nope.
And but I truly believed in the concept and the vision that Natalie and Wendy had for RAREiTi, and that was what drove me to, you know, continue on the journey. And you know, I've not looked back since. Saying that, it's not been easy. You know, it's a tough gig every single day, really, because you know what we saw between June 2020 and December 2020 was a bit of an inertia in the marketplace, because, and quite rightly, because everything was at a standstill. And you know, our prospective clients were really focusing on their you know, the patients that they had on therapy, you know, on their own operations, and quite rightly. But I think since we came out of, you know, the first lockdown, things have started to move on, and we've seen a lot of traction, and we have truly worked in a global way, you know, across the US, the UK, Europe, the Far East, and Latin America. And you know, it's the new norm, the way in which we're working. You know, we're working in a Zoom generation, aren't we? And I think it's the new norm, and everybody's adopted that new norm. And you build relationships and trust and win business based on that remote access, rather than, you know, how it used to be in the olden days where you'd see people face to face.
What would you say has been maybe the biggest challenge, you know, during your time there? Because when you and I have spoke previously, I was quite impressed that you almost have used it as a bit of an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
Talk to us about that. You know, what's the biggest challenge? How have you dealt with that?
So, I mean, it was So it was an opportunity, that time between June and December was an opportunity to really, really invest in what we wanted. One, as a business model, and two, in the technology. And so we could put that laser focus into developing our digital platform to the point where, it's really, really neat, user-friendly, workable, delivers on what we expected to deliver. So we've used the time really well to get us in a place where we've got quite a unique offering.
A lot of people were faced with this same adversity, but I think what I like with yourself is the fact that you've used that as an opportunity to build on your core values, that laser focus. And if anything, you've come out better for it by the sound of things.
Yeah, well, we hope so. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's been tough. Like I said, it's been tough, but I'm really proud of what we've achieved in the year. We've had an amazing journey. I'm really proud of what we've got as a service offering and as the technology. And from my perspective, it's onwards and upwards. And I think we've got some great relationships with customers that can see exactly what makes us different out in the marketplace, because there's a lot of players in the market access, expanded access, patient support, program environment. And I think we've truly got a good differentiator here.
But I also think to build on that point, Alex, it's very interesting that as a company, I think I get from RAREiTi that you know what you are, but you know what you're not. And you don't try and be something that you're not. And there are plenty of companies out there right now who are trying to appeal to all different markets and all different types of customers. And what's very clear to me, certainly through the discussion we've had today, but also through knowing you outside of this discussion, is that there is that differentiator. You saw a gap in the market, you identified that, and you didn't try and fulfill everything to all customers. It was really making sure that you had that differentiator. And I don't think, to be fair to you and RAREiTi, I don't think there are many others out there doing that right now. I really don't.
I haven't seen anybody, but we've been focusing on what we're doing rather than what other people are doing. And I think that's important when you're trying to build something successful. You need to know what's going on in the marketplace, but focus on what you're doing.
Yeah, but I think the other point that James made as well is the fact that over the last year, 18 months, we've all had a lot more time and probably become a lot more efficient in the time that we spend doing the work. Though we may be spending more time doing it, I think things are generally moving at some incredible pace, because the opportunity to interact with people, with clients, with customers has never been so easy through the medium of Zoom and Teams. We don't have to get on planes anymore. We certainly don't have to waste all that time traveling to and from different sites. We're just there, and we can then be in another virtual room the next hour. And I'd love to hear, if that's been your experience as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think, it's it really has been that experience. And in my previous job, I commuted for 2 hours a day, and 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. So
wow.
And that waste, for me, that was wasted time. Yes, of course, you can make calls and stuff, but it has become way more efficient and way more accepted, and also you get to know people much better. You get to know their dogs and their kids and that sort of thing, and that's important, actually. So
I think it's made the business world a lot more human, hasn't it? And look, just everything I'm hearing from yourself, I love the adaptive mindset. I love the winner's mindset that you've got, even about, we're not really focused on what everyone else is doing. Yes, we're aware of the market, but we're focused on us. And that is, I guess.
Just be the very best that you can be.
Absolutely. That's what I tell my kids every day as well.
Yeah. James, it would, at this point, it's worth saying, there is a pattern of behavior amongst the leadership group. And it comes from Natalie, Wendy, and also from Alex and others within the team. But there is a consistency of messaging that you will see across each one of those individuals that is absolutely crystal clear.
Yeah. And, Adam said that he'd worked for Natalie previously, and so did I. I worked for Natalie for 5 years at Healthcare at Home.
Yeah.
And, when she you know, when she approached me about this role, it was a complete no-brainer, you know, because she carries with her something that really is quite exquisite. And, you know, I was absolutely delighted to work with her again. And I know Adam has had similar experience.
Absolutely. She doesn't, you know, everything Natalie touches turns to gold. There's no two ways about it. She is the most incredibly inspirational leader that I've ever worked for, actually. And
what a
and
same
as you, Alex.
Same. So put them two together. That,
yeah.
You know, it sounds like there's going to be big things ahead for you guys. You know, so I mean, what are the plans moving forward? What's in store for RAREiTi over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, well, we've got a pretty strong growth plan, and obviously we need to, you know, I want to deliver on that. And for me, the focus is on growth and bringing on new clients. But what that actually means is, you know, bringing on the opportunity for more patients to access therapy. And so there's always this element of my clinical background. You know, one of the things that I've learned working in pharma and working in, you know, on the service side of pharma is, as a clinician, I can help way more people in this role than I could if I was working as a nurse, you know, on a ward, or, you know, in a community based. You know, the reach to help people in this role is much greater. And so that's what we're here for. That's what we're all here for. Everybody that works in pharma is really here to help patients. And I think I'm really proud to be part of that, you know, that world. You know, when you just see what's happened with, you know, the vaccination program and the delivery of the vaccinations. You know, we've been able as an industry to you know, to change, you know, to save people's lives through the vaccination program. And that's built on years and years and years of scientific excellence, actually, and it's great to be part of that journey.
It sounds like there's certainly exciting times ahead. I know that Adam's been working on various COVID bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, that's very exciting.
I know that he is, I guess, like a lot of us at the moment, working night and day, Adam, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it, Alex, there's such synergy around not just the message, but actually the passion behind what you're doing. You know, people do not go into this industry unless they want to make a difference. And that's no cliche, honestly. I mean, your backstory is absolutely speaking to that point. It's certainly what I align with, and every single day. And, you know, your reference to the vaccines. We've all experienced something extraordinary in the last year. You know, we are all part of an enormous clinical trial, whether we like it or not. We all are. We're all living proof, whether or not we choose to have vaccines in us, and whoever provides them. You know, full disclosure, I've got 2 jabs of AZ in my arm, and I'm very happy about it.
Me too. I've got 2 jabs of AZ in my arm too.
And I couldn't have said that a year ago, and I certainly wouldn't have been expecting to be working on those trials with that extraordinary company. You know, we've seen incredible things this last year. Let's make no bones about it. And what you're describing and what you're talking about with rare diseases, you know, COVID is a rare disease, isn't it? We didn't know about it a little over a year ago, and suddenly within a year, when brains are put together, something magical has been created by the life science and drug research and development industry. Something absolutely extraordinary.
And you know what that has. You know, what that has enabled, Adam, is the opportunity, because obviously, you know, when full lockdown happened, global lockdown happened, people with a rare disease, and the majority of them were shielding, and getting access to their doctor or their clinical nurse specialist was pretty tricky. And what the vaccine program has allowed is for them to start re-engaging with their therapy and their treatment. And I think it's really important to recognise that, you know, like in rare disease, but also in cancer, in all sorts of things, you know, we've got to get back to this situation where patients can be treated and receive the adequate treatment. And the vaccination program is an enabler in that, because it's allowed doors to be opened.
Look, most definitely, and I'm still still a little bit taken aback about this app and how it all works, if I'm honest. It's amazing what you guys
I think you need to give him a demo, Alex. Outside of this conversation, you need to see it. It's very impressive, James.
Yeah, have a little play on that. I love it. I love an app, a gizmo, anything like that.
And it looks really cool too, I have to say. I'm really, really pleased with the look and feel of it.
Well, I'm definitely sold, and I'm sold on you as well, Alex. It's been fantastic having you on. And look, we've reached close to the end of the show, but this is our quick fire session. Just to hear a few words of wisdom from your end, I guess. I'm sure our audience will be very interested to hear what you have to say to these. So look, I'll kick us off. What would you say is the one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
It has to be believe in yourself. You have to believe that, you know, you can do what your ambition is and what your vision is.
Great. Simple, effective, like that.
Very good. Following on from that, is there a book on your bookshelf at the moment or a resource that you'd recommend for our audience? They're always interested to hear what people are reading at the moment. What keeps them awake at night?
So I'm a huge reader, and I sort of flipped between, books on leadership, self-help guides on, mental health and well-being and healthy balance. Mm-hmm. One thing that I think is a fantastic read, if anybody's interested in rare diseases, is this book. I don't know whether you can see it properly.
I can't see it too well. What's it called?
It's called Uncommon Challenges and Shared Journeys. And it really is a collaborative of parents' insights into the fight they've had to go through to get their children with a rare disease for treatment. And honestly, it's a beautiful book. It's really, really easy to read and really well worth reading.
Sounds good. I know that I'm off anytime that I come across things like this, or people are doing a Just Giving page and, they tell their stories and the challenge that they're facing. I'm normally like that. Okay, sign up, donate. So that sounds like a fantastic book. Moving on to the next question. It sounds like there's big plans for growth for you guys. So probably quite an apt question at this point is, what are the top 3 qualities that you look for when actually building a team?
Mm-hmm. I think Adam can answer this for me.
Can I? Oh, that's very good. Yeah. I think here's the 3 qualities I think you look for. I think you look for capability, professionalism, and integrity.
Oh,
how about that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was going to say honesty, but integrity covers it. And I think, having that open and honest dialogue with your team is really, really important. So that's what I try to live by, those qualities myself. And I think another really important element, when you're recruiting a team, is not to be threatened by people that have got better capability than you, better technical expertise, because, I think that's really important. You need to bring that expertise in because it helps the business grow and it helps success.
I think delegation is at the core of good leadership, isn't it? It's understanding that you can't possibly do every task that there is, and that there are other people there that can actually facilitate that on your behalf.
And you can't be
so important
at everything. You can't. You need to bring that expertise in.
Yeah,
perfect.
Great answer. So I think I might know the answer to this one as well, but I'll ask the question. So what's your favourite thing outside of work, Alex?
I'm going to say paddleboarding.
No, that was what I was going to say. Because I introduced Alex to paddleboarding.
Really?
So I love the outdoors and I really love paddleboarding. So we've got 3 in the house now.
Wow.
3?
Yeah.
Wow, you've really embraced it. My goodness.
Yeah, 1 each for me and my husband, and then whatever child is home from uni or home from there, whatever they're doing, awesome, can come. And it's really, really good fun. So it's a combination of, being in the outdoors, and it can be a little bit hairy at times, but it's very, very relaxing as well. And I know you've been sort of
I'm hooked.
Enjoying it as well.
I'm hooked. When the weather's nice.
Or are you in the sea for that, Alex?
No, so I do love the sea though, and I do quite a lot of wild swimming in the winter. But you're better off not being in the sea on a paddleboard. You're better off being on a gentle river or on a lake or a
water course. I've got some nice water courses around us, and I think you have around where you live as well, Alex, haven't you?
Absolutely.
But the sea can get quite choppy.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's challenging, yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I was kind of asking for a friend, as it may, just in case. And that sounds great fun, guys. Adam, you have to introduce me to that as well, I guess. I'll have to try that out. Look, Alex, to wrap up the show, and finally, what would be your number one golden rule for life and for business?
Yeah, I think for me, it's got to be authenticity. You've got to be authentic. And I think, with customers, you've got to be authentic and honest with, building a team from a leadership perspective. But outside of that as well, in friendships and as a parent, I think authenticity is really important.
Perfect. Couldn't agree more. And I think, Adam, you and I, everyone that we've spoken to so far kind of shares that same mantra, don't they? And I think
the principles are extraordinarily common, aren't they? There are so many common threads that run through all of the people that we're interviewing. And I really am so grateful for you sharing your story also, Alex, and just really putting it some context into the the wider picture now, because I think the more people that know about not just the work that you and RAREiTi are doing, but actually the principles behind which you do your work is really important, because I don't think that ever gets out enough into the public domain. No. The people that drive clinical research, that work in life sciences, and the passion behind which they do the work that they do. That's what you've spoken to.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, look, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I'm sure that you, Adam, and I will no doubt keep in contact. I'm going to be following your journey. But for our audience and anyone that perhaps wants to reach out to find out more about the app, not just myself, but anyone else, or RAREiTi in general, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so we've got quite a big profile on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a good place to look at RAREiTi. Mm-hmm. And I'm very open for people reaching out either through LinkedIn or emailing me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, look, I'll say it again. Thanks again for being such a great guest.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it. Hope you have too. And look, I'll let you both get off to enjoy your evenings.
Thanks ever so much, Alex.
Thank you very much, guys.